Hi, Paul. Great to have you here at BDD BioCity. Could you tell our listeners a little bit about your background and how you came to know BDD?
Yeah, well, thanks very much, Calum, and it's great to be here at your facility today and to have the opportunity to talk through some of what you've done so far, where that fits within the future, I think, of biosciences. So, great to be here with you. I've had a long relationship with BDD, stretching through a lot of the different phases of my own career. So I started as a medicines regulator with MHRA. After that, I spent about 15 years actually working in the industry in a range of different technical roles with, I suppose, more responsibility as I went along. First here in the UK and then more with European and global responsibilities. And throughout that, there were a few touch points with BDD as well that we great to sort of talk about how they have kind of led to where you've got to today. And then more recently, and in my current role, I'm the technical director for one of the UK pharmaceutical industry trade associations, Medicines UK.
So, Paul, when you first saw BDD's lean clinical development approach that we've developed and we're implementing now, what were some of your thoughts, sort of from your industry background, around that?
Throughout the years, actually, I've had the benefit of working with BDD on a number of projects. Particularly, I was working for pharmaceutical companies, and I can see from that experience how that's progressively led the company towards the lean development and lead clinical development concepts that you're now putting into operation. So some of the earlier projects that I worked with BDD on were around formulation development. Also was involved as the projects that utilised your gamma scintigraphy capability, and also looking at the steps through the development pipeline into pharmacokinetic studies and first-in-man studies. So I could see the natural progression of tying those things together into a coherent package of what you've done with the bringing everything together into a sort of a simple, integrated, easy-to-understand package. So I could see the appeal of that to industry, both from my own experience working within research and development parts of pharmaceutical companies. Also now, when I'm a little bit more removed from that, looking at how that fits within the choices that companies make about who to partner with, where to locate their work, and how to secure their investments. So having a sort of a one-stop shop, a more integrated approach, but being very flexible and agile, I see has been a very competitive advantage within the industry and something that's going to be attractive to a lot of companies when they're thinking about how they structure their research activities.
Super. So can I ask, Paul, from an industry expert background, what are some of the headaches that people typically come across that lean clinical development can tackle?
A lot of the challenges come from the structure of organising the work, from my own experience of working within the industry, and that could be around having multiple partners, having a little bit of a sort of a siloed approach, doing work sequentially, and then the decision points, the development milestones, how to make decisions and how to progress to the next step, and how to sort of navigate those go, no-go decision points. One of the advantages that I see with the BDD approach is it kind of addresses some of those challenges head on and gives a way of facilitating that decision-making within the company and then reducing that time from completing one piece of work and starting the next. So it's much more of a sort of an integrated approach, but not working in a way that things get ahead of themselves. So one of the things I like about the BDD approach is that the visibility of the progress of the work for continuous production of documentation and status information, and at the same time keeping an eye on where the budget is heading. So everything is much more transparent and easier to sort of feel confident about the progress of the project, but always with that opportunity to intervene and to make some type of change or correction if needed.
Thank you. Some worry that a lean approach might be cutting corners. How does the model ensure that it ticks all those regulatory pathways and boxes?
There are lots of different ways of approaching clinical development, and different research organisations different people who are involved with sponsoring research. I get involved with projects that are not just organised by pharmaceutical companies and funded by them, but some that are run by medical research charities. I've actually done a lot of work in that area over the last few years, and different types of sponsors. And all then do come with different approaches, different thoughts about what their objectives are, how they want to reach their particular goals, how they want to take products to market. Therefore, I think we are in a period of time now where there's a much more flexible approach. And therefore, it's all about the standards of the work. I don't think it's about following a very strict single way of working anymore. It's more about being confident that whoever you're partnering with is working to the highest international standards, wherever that data is going to be utilized. And I think that's much more important than following a very rigid, sequential way of working. Yeah. So one of my experiences of working in recent years is that people are much more focused on how can they assure themselves about the quality standards, the clinical standards of the work that's being done, a little bit less so about fixing a very rigid way of working.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think it's a really interesting time that we're in at the moment, Calum, because different approaches to clinical development are taking seed, and a lot of the thoughts are moving from sort of conferences and forums more into how can the regulator get to grips with them. And so I think there is more open-minded environment for regulators to look at different approaches, particularly for sort of hard to solve problems. And so areas where there's been perhaps an underinvestment in research, where there's been a history of poorly designed studies with poorly defined endpoints and perhaps not set up towards leading to a regulatory approval, where there's a mixture of data from charitable sources or publicly funded studies, from studies done independently within NHS, then being blended together with studies run by the industry. All of that is becoming more common. Therefore, the ability of a regulator to be taking into account different types of data sets and bringing them together, even to be able to support a regulatory approval, that is becoming more common. Therefore, the type of approach that BDD is following, where it's quite agile, it's quite flexible, it's quite responsive, and things are actually done in a fairly compressed timescale, I think that fits very well with the new and emerging regulatory environment, not just here in the UK, but in Europe. I certainly hear those conversations and wider afield from that as well.
Thank you. So, Paul, with that in mind, how is it different working with this integrated approach like lean clinical development over traditional siloed processes?
One of the main benefits that I see, particularly when comparing it to more sort of historical, traditional approaches, is that it does involve teams much more closely together. So it's not sort of passing it from one function to another. The decision making, the sharing of data, the assessment of milestones, setting up the next phase development is much more tightly organized. So it's a much more integrated approach. And although perhaps it's not directly set up to do that, the model that BDD follows with this lean clinical development does kind of encourage sponsors to work in that way as well. So I kind of see a benefit cascading back into sponsor organizations as well as directly into the project. And I think there's more interest to work in that way, in a much more collaborative way and with sort of fewer barriers towards decision making. And I think that's also helpful as well in terms of keeping an eye on overall development costs. It feels a much more hands-on, it feels a much more integrated way of working for the people who are directly involved in the projects. And I think that gives more comfort towards decision making and also tells monitoring progress and being sure that everything's on track, not just in time, but also financially as well.
Yeah, exactly. And it gives you that rapid flexibility when you need to adjust, rather than things potentially traveling down the line and then having to be reassessed at a more expensive time point.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. And I think industry and sponsors are definitely looking for that. How can we work to that given standard, but have enough sort of flexibility within the structure of the work that we can make adjustments, particularly in the early stages running up to phase 1.
Yeah, with less waste. Yeah. Thank you. Any final takeaways, Paul, that you would like our listeners to take away with?
Well, I think it's a great time to be having this conversation. So we're kind of sitting here in sort of early summer in Scotland, and
you wouldn't know it, but we are. Yeah.
and the UK is shortly going to be publishing its life sciences strategy. We could say that's kind of a long-awaited thing. It's something that most governments do, but we're expecting it to be a little bit different this time. In terms of what we think might be coming, we expect it to actually be tuning in quite a lot with some of the concepts we've been talking about today. Much more joined up approach between different parts of the UK health system, between the regulator MHRA, between the health technology assessment that's done by MICE, with the NHS in terms of running sites to open up to clinical trials, in terms of the capacity within the NHS to run clinical studies and the ease of accessing that, how to make all of that more seamless. And if we can execute that well, it certainly helps to position the UK as a more attractive place to do your clinical development work and to invest in for research and for bringing more products to the market in the UK. Should always be benefit of the UK system that you have one NHS, a national system of government, national organisations for medicines regulation, health technology assessment, and then market access. It could be said sometimes we haven't taken full advantage of that. But I think it's an interesting thing to think about, that where we are in the world at the moment, where some of the sort of the stability is not there as it used to be, perhaps the UK has a particular period of opportunity where politically things look pretty set for the next 4 years. That gives more certainty towards planning and investment. Maybe we're in that period now where the UK is looking more attractive as a destination for life sciences, for biosciences, for investment in medicines development, perhaps compared to some of the other options where companies may have gone in the past. So I think it's really well timed to be having this conversation now, and we probably are in a period of opportunity for the UK for the type of activities and the type of programs that we've been talking about here at BDD today.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's a lot of the feedback I'm getting myself is along the similar vein of the UK being that sort of stability piece at the moment, and it is about taking advantage of that and just pressing forwards with all the stuff we talked about.
Yeah, certainly across the industry and in interactions that we had with officials and with government, I think there certainly is a shared ambition to make that happen. With any opportunity, it's important to grab the moment. It kind of feels that we're in that period right now.
Yeah. Well, Paul, thank you very much for talking to me today, and thank you for coming in.
Yeah, well, I've really enjoyed it. It's great to be here at the site, and look forward to keeping this conversation going over the months and years to come.
Thank you, Paul.
My pleasure.